Hello and welcome to a live Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. I am your host, Keri. This is the show where we talk about the social justice cult, the woke cult, the cult I was in for 20 years, and we try and help explain it for people who are in it still and don't understand what it is, or who are woke adjacent, who are tangentially a part of it, or who have accepted some of its premises and falsely, incorrectly believe that it is liberalism. Welcome. If there's any new people, I'm glad you're here. Even if you disagree, feel free to express your opinions in the comments. We only ask that you try and be civil when you do so. You can disagree passionately without being a jerk. Welcome to all. I see so many regular faces. Hello, Robert. Give it up for Therese and Robert, two of our mods who are here. I appreciate you guys being here. I'll just tell you, last night we had a great book club. We did the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin, and it was one of the best books I think we've discussed yet. It's, we've read some very modern books about the cult of social justice, about woke. And this was a nice change of pace. And this book it's pretty short. So you can listen to it. I even found there's a version on YouTube you can listen for free. Or you can go and get a copy of it. And there's some of them are bigger than others because they include selected works and letters of his at the end. But the autobiography itself is not that long. Here's why I suggest it. Here's some of the takeaways from book club last night. Sometimes this book is called one of the first self-help books. And because Ben Franklin in this book, he starts off, when he started writing it, it was addressed to his son. And then over time, it seemed when he would come back to it after a period of years, it wasn't so much addressed to his son anymore as just to young people in general. He included 2 letters in it from friends of his who said they had read the first part and it was so useful and it could be of so much help for young people to show them how he steered his life, how he tried to continually improve himself and understand his weaknesses of character and to try and overcome those weaknesses. And they said, this is very valuable for young people. You should keep writing it. And he sort of took on that tone of writing to more people in the second part. But in this book, so he's very introspective and he's very thoughtful. And it definitely, when you read this, it's going to make you it's a stark contrast. It's going to make you notice the stark contrast to the politicians of today. And in fact, most people today, most of us, we don't have his vocabulary, the vocabulary they had back then. We also don't engage in thought, actual critical thought, as much as they did back then. And we talked about that in book club last night a little bit because our world is full of so many distractions and things that pull our attention and allow us to sort of unplug. And so many of our opinions are received. So much of everything that we consume is received. And so there were some people in the book club talking about, and my husband joined also, he in particular was talking about when he was younger, remembering a time when as a teenager, he used to lie on the bed and just think about things, just thinking, which we don't seem to have very much time for anymore. Thought. We always have to like occupy our mind with something like a babysitter, a social media or phone or TV or movie or whatever, video game, distraction. And so we're not spending as much time thinking. I think even the average man, but also the politicians, they're not very thoughtful people. And so Ben Franklin was very thoughtful and very industrious. And just the amount of things he did. And this book isn't he doesn't brag a lot. He'll casually drop some things, but he sort of casually drops the experiments with electricity and the kite at one point. He's like, and I won't even get into what I did with the kite. Like, he's just sort of, that's not the focus. The focus is on improving himself. This is a man at the end of his life, looking back over his long life. And he includes this list that he wrote when he was pretty young, where he started to identify all of his vices, all of his character defaults, and then to identify antidotes to those virtues. And so he wrote this list, is a very famous list of the 13 virtues, things that he wanted to improve in himself. And if you read this, if you've read Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, some of this might sound familiar to you. Some of them are overlapping. In this list of virtues, a couple of interesting things. His list, he put them in an order that he thought would best help him to address each subsequent virtue. And he was very methodical about working on himself. He would carry a little notebook around where he had columns for all the different virtues that he wanted to grow. And he would focus on the first one was temperance. And he would focus on them in order for a week at a time and then go back and do it again. And so he would mark every day if he failed at practicing that virtue or not. And he would try to get better over time. He was very mathematical about it, the way he was trying to do it and to be honest. Here, temperance, that was the first one. Eat not to dullness and drink not to elevation. And so he said, I think rightly so, if he's able to get better at temperance, then he might be able to get better at the next one, which was silence. And he said, speak not, but what may benefit others or yourself, avoid trifling conversation. And if he got better at silence and listening to others and not filling space with useless stuff, useless words, then he said, maybe then I'll be able to tackle the third one, which was order. Let all of your things have their places. Let each part of your business have its time. That'll definitely remind you of Jordan Peterson, that one, order. And he talked about how order was the hardest one for him, that he was very disordered. And that resonated with me. And I'm sure it'll resonate with some of you. And trying to work on that one, how often he almost gave up working on it. But someone in I think it was Mike in book club, was talking about how the process itself is the reward. Because he was saying, even though you're never going to get perfect at these things, getting better at it and practicing it and focusing on it and trying to achieve these things is going to make you happier and you're going to have a better life. And he's evidence of that. And so he was saying how hard order was for him and how we use reason to justify things, and how he caught himself at times trying to justify giving up pursuing better order in his life. And his brain was doing all kinds of things, talking to him like, well, it's really better if you don't become more ordered, because then people might become jealous of you and they might hate you and resent you for being a more ordered person. And you should really stop. Isn't it better not to become more ordered? And that also resonated with me, the way that our minds and our hearts can be fickle things and try and justify to ourselves things that are not good for us. And so he struggled with order and he kept working at it. And he went through this whole list of 13. The 13th one, he originally didn't have in his list. He said it was originally a list of 12 virtues. The 13th is humility. And he added that because a friend told him that he had a glaring omission in his list. He said, one of your biggest vices is pride. And that convinced him that he needed that being a vice, he needed the virtue that's an antidote to that, humility. So he added that as his 13th. And that one, he also talked about being very difficult. And he even said he assumes that maybe pride is the hardest of all the vices to completely eradicate from our hearts, from ourselves. Because he said, even if I were to become more humble through trying to practice it, then I'm in danger of maybe becoming prideful of my humility. Which, those of you who read the Screw Tape Letters, C.S. Lewis Screw Tape Letters with us, you will recognize that, because that was something that Wormwood, Screw Tape was saying to Wormwood, is these two demons talking about how to corrupt this human, this Christian human. And he was saying, oh, your human has discovered humility, which is terrible, but no worries, now all you have to do is make him aware of his own humility and pride will grow. And that's so similar to what Ben Franklin was saying about humility and pride. And gave us all a lot to think about and to talk about. And one of the things Ben Franklin said about that was that he would work on the appearance of something even if he didn't possess it yet. So like with humility, he started eradicating prideful things from his speech to try and grow humility in himself. Industriousness, the same thing. He would not be caught. He would not be seen wasting time at bars or, you know, places like this. He would not have the appearance of being slothful. And so that was also interesting to think about how you can it's sort of like fake it till you make it, right? like work towards rooting it out of yourself, even if you don't feel like you've attained it, because no human is perfect. The only perfect human, I believe, was Jesus. So you're never going to achieve that, but you can work towards it and you can get better, and your aim can get better over time the more you practice it. So it's a great book. There's so much more in it. I definitely recommend it. I think young people should read this book, and reading it will, I think that one of the reasons people call it a self-help book is I think it can't help but inspire you as you're reading it to get better yourself, to identify, like I was thinking of all the things I need to list out and figure out how I can improve in these areas. And yeah, it was a great read, and I'm very grateful to the people who came to book club last night. We don't have a new book club date yet. My husband and I are going to be traveling for his music a little bit in the next few months, and so I'm gonna pick a new date and announce it soon. Though it'll probably be in September, so you'll have a good month and a half, 2 months to read. And I hope that you guys will join us for the next one. It was, like I said, it was great. It was a lot of fun. So far, we haven't put any of these online. We've just kept them private. I have recorded them in case we ever change our mind and people are okay with it. But for now, I think it's kind of cool to have this private sort of community where people feel very free to say whatever they think and put themselves on camera. And it's just a great environment. So thank you guys. Therese says, Jordan B. Peterson before his time. Yes. I don't think I've ever heard Peterson talk about Ben Franklin, although I'm sure he probably has, because it was very evident to me that a lot of the things they were talking about overlapped. Hey guys. Okay, so for today's topic, welcome. If you're new, like I said, welcome. The goal of this show, and I have to periodically remind people and remind myself, my goal with Deprogrammed is to help better illustrate for average people, the common man, to help better illustrate what woke ideology, social justice ideology really is. It was an ideology I was in for 20 years, and I have seen people since I started leaving it in 2016, 2017. I have seen many other people leave it. I have met many people who have left it like I did. Some of you were in the chat today. And I fully believe that it is possible that there are some people in it, even now, even at this late stage, there are people in it with good intent who have been brainwashed, who have no idea what it is they're supporting. They think they're supporting some kind of liberalism. And I want to work towards helping to wake more people up. And I've talked with others who are doing this in their own way, some of whom are trying to find ways to wake up large amounts of people at once. Peter Boghossian, when he interviewed me, that's one of his concerns, is how to break a spell, I would say, for a large amount of people. And I hope he figures it out. I don't know if that's possible. In my experience, it's been person by person. So that's why I do this show. That's why I'm going to keep doing this show as long as I feel that's necessary and still possible to wake people up. And I hope that some of you are watching today who don't understand what I'm on about. And some of you who think that you are liberals and that I'm not a liberal, and you don't know what you actually believe, or that you've never examined the beliefs of your tribe, your cult that I used to be in. You never examined them to see if they're actually liberal beliefs or if your behaviors are liberal behaviors. Those are the people I'm talking to. And the ones who still have enough of an open mind to hear what I'm saying and to try and understand, who actually have curiosity. I hear from the people who aren't curious all the time. They just want to come and put words in my mouth that I haven't said, and beliefs in my head that I don't hold, and they're dishonest, and they're passive aggressive, and they're rude and just hateful and incorrect. And I don't I'm not concerned with those people. I'm concerned with the percentage, and I'm not sure how many it is, but the percentage of people who still have a bit of liberal open-mindedness about themselves, who haven't been completely beat down by the cult. And welcome if you are here. Okay. I'm going to drink this, then we're going to get started. This is a bit of a immune shot. My husband's been sick, so we're taking these things. That's cayenne pepper. And elderberry. But it's very good for you. Woo! Eric, thank you for the super chat. Thanks for supporting Deprogrammed. Eric Heffelfinger for $20 says, people like Joy Reid spent all of COVID bending to the government and the left. Trump's and the crowd's reactions show a mentality and principle foundation that Joy does not have and cannot understand. It scares them. I agree with you. And we're going to talk about Joy Reid today. And I set people like, I don't know about you, Eric, but I set her apart from the masses because she has more power than them. And in fact, she's one of the mouthpieces of the regime that helps to guide them and to feed them propaganda and to mislead them. She's one of the Pied Pipers. And I can forgive. I'm not telling you guys what to do, but I can forgive the common man who's been brainwashed and wakes up. I do not, in my heart, I know I need to try to grow it, but I do not have a lot of forgiveness right now for the mouthpieces, for those who are willfully lying to the public, spreading propaganda, spreading resentment and evil. People like Chris Cuomo, who changes his mind on some things that he used to attack all of us for about COVID, but then doesn't have the balls or the character to say he's sorry, to put the blame on someone else when he was a mouthpiece for it, when he pushed the propaganda that he now disagrees with, can't take any responsibility for it. That's a weak, sniveling character. And I don't have a lot of forgiveness for that yet. Thank you, Eric. Texas Sheep Laces, like elderberry, honey, apple cider, vinegar treats. These are all tips. Thank you. Okay, let's start with this. So this is Joy Reid. And she's just one of many of the talking heads in the leftist regime who are pushing conspiracy theories. How funny is that? Remember about the left, the cult that I was in. They behave in very sociopathic, narcissistic ways. Much like sociopaths and narcissists, they engage in projection. They always, always, always accuse you of the very thing they are doing. They always accuse you of what they are. They accuse you of the things they have done or want to do. They are masters of projection. Darvo, deny and reverse victim offender. They do this all the time. And so what was one of their biggest, there've been so many, but one of their biggest propaganda talking points in the past few years during the COVID years was to call everyone on the right a conspiracy theorist. Oh, you're conspiracy theorists, and we're going to ban you. And they use that as justification, that false accusation as justification to censor people, to take down videos. Like they took down some of my videos, to ban people. I'm sure some of you guys have been banned. I've been put in Facebook jail so many times. I should have a Facebook prison tattoo. They use that as justification. They called everybody conspiracy theorists. Oh, they're crazy. They're loopy. They're out there, right? This is what they are. They are conspiracy theorists. The difference is they have so much power. They have the mouthpiece of the corporate media. They have the mouthpiece of politics, of celebrities. They have a huge, huge microphone. And this is an example. This is Joy Reid. I'm just going to let you listen to it. We can talk about it.
We still don't know for sure whether Donald Trump was hit by a bullet, whether he was hit by glass fragments, whether he was hit by shrapnel. We don't have those details. We actually have no details from his physician, even though this man is still a Secret Service protected, and presidential candidate. We know almost nothing. Why? Why don't we know that much? We know that 3 people were shot. 1 person, unfortunately, was killed at the rally. We don't know where they were sitting or standing relative to him. We don't know why, for 9 full seconds, Donald Trump was allowed to stand back up during an active shooter situation, even though they, at that point, had said the shooter was down. How would they have known if there were more shooters or not? Nobody knew that there could have been 5 shooters for all they knew. Yet they allowed him to stand up in the middle of that, crisis and pose for a photo and fist pump the air so he could get the iconic photo. And then they allowed him to stand up again outside of the SUV instead of just shoving him into the SUV. That seems really unusual. What is the actual injury to Donald Trump's ear that's under that bandage?
Wow.
Shouldn't we know that by now? It's weird. And there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of curiosity about it, in the sort of media world, my profession. It's weird, right? Where are the FOIAs? Why isn't the New York Times aggressively pursuing his medical records? It's just weird. Just a strange thing that I've noticed. And I don't know if you guys have noticed it too, but it's weird.
So there is conspiracy theorist Joy Reid lying to you, first of all, and saying we don't know if it was a bullet, it could have been glass, which is not true. Here, let's use any of the numerous. Let's use Snopes. Snopes is a leftist fact-checking site, so leftists should trust it, right? It's one of yours. You know what? It's bad when even Snopes has to admit the truth. Snopes. Hit with a bullet. Glass from teleprompter did not injure Trump. Published 2 days ago. They had to do this because there's so many crazy conspiracy theorists on the left. Broken glass from a teleprompter requires the existence of a broken teleprompter. I love that. And you can see here in this picture, both teleprompters there are intact. Okay. That's from Getty Image. The claim, they say, the injury Trump sustained during a July 13th, 2024 assassination attempt was not caused by a bullet, but by broken glass. First of all, let's just talk about the craziness of this lie in general. I mean, they're trying to say, and you'll see George Takei, I'm going to show you his tweet in a second. They're trying to say, even if this were true, which it's not, it's crazy. It's not reality. But even if it were true, what does that mean? You're like, I guess the assassination attempt wasn't as bad as we thought because instead of a bullet grazing his ear, it was just a bullet hitting a teleprompter right next to him that sent glass into his ear. Therefore, everything's okay. It's still an assassination attempt, and a guy was shooting bullets at his head. Like either way, like even if you're trying to prove this lie, and why, it's still crazy. It's still like, why? What's the point? You just want to sow doubt. You just hate him so much. You hate him so much that you have to come up with some crazy he's lying about a bullet and somehow, and by the way, uh a firefighter was killed as part of this crazy leftist it would require that if Trump staged this, that it was that he took out a firefighter, someone in the crowd. Like it's just so insane. Let's continue with Snopes. So they say the claim, the injury Trump sustained during a July 13th, 2024 assassination attempt was not caused by a bullet, but by broken glass. Snopes says, a leftist outlet says false. Despite an increasingly clear picture of the timing and location of shots fired on former U.S. President Donald Trump during an attempted assassination at a July 13th Trump rally, skepticism over the question of whether or not Trump was hit with a bullet remained on social media days later. And you can see this tweet here from someone named True Facts Stated. Talk about Darvo, right? And he says Trump was shot at, nearly killed. Others were shot and killed or wounded. He was lightly injured by flying debris and shards of glass. That's a lie. If an AR round had winged him, it would have been a much worse injury. That's a lie. He didn't, quote, take a bullet for you. He took a shard for you. Am I wrong? Yes, you are wrong, True Facts Stated. Snopes continues, skepticism over the notion that Trump had actually been hit by a bullet was fueled by anonymously sourced reports that he was, quote, not struck by a bullet, but hit by glass fragments from a teleprompter that had been hit by a bullet. And here you can see more tweets where this is always anonymous. They're always saying anonymous sources. Remember when this didn't used to be prevalent like it is today? Now they can say, they can push, the mainstream media does this all the time now. They really ramped it up when Trump was president, is everything is an anonymous source says, an anonymous source says, an anonymous source says, and then they can say whatever lie they want. Reporters from both Newsmax and Axios reported on a source making this claim, which was then amplified. Newsmax did this, amplified by other outlets, including Raw Story. Some went so far as to call the purported disclosure evidence of a stunt. They called it a stunt. There was, however, no evidence to suggest anything other than a bullet caused the wound to Trump's ear. And these early reports to the contrary have largely been walked back. People are, except not Joy Reid, she's not walking it back. She has no shame, just like a sociopath. No shame. The assertion that glass, not a bullet, caused the injury is undercut by the fact that photographs show no damage to the teleprompters allegedly hit to produce the broken glass, by a New York Times photograph capturing a bullet passing by Trump's ear, and by the fact that Trump later stated on Truth Social that a bullet had in fact pierced his ear. Trump's description of his wound matches photographs of his ear after he was hit prior to being removed from stage. The two circles below, added by Snopes, highlight two areas that appear to be torn skin. You can see that picture. Following initial publication of this piece, several users online took umbrage with our assertion there's no evidence of broken teleprompters, and they shared this photo as purported evidence of a shattered teleprompter. You see that little square in the upper right on that teleprompter? However, this photograph is a low-resolution version of an image taken by Getty Images photographer Anna Moneymaker, and it does not show a damaged teleprompter. The purported damage shown in the top right corner is merely a reflection of some object as seen below in a zoomed-in, higher-resolution version of the same photograph. There it is. You can see the reflection in the teleprompter. That's clearly not broken. Other photographs taken after the above photograph showed two intact teleprompter screens. The photo below comes after the would-be assassin shots were fired because the armed and helmeted law enforcement officer at the bottom left did not get onto the stage until the shots stopped, based on video of the event. There you can see both. You can see the teleprompter intact, both of them, here and here. Here's that same moment, photographed from a different angle, clearly showing two intact teleprompters. Other video from after the incident shows two intact teleprompters as well. The theory that glass from a teleprompter caused Trump's wound requires a broken teleprompter. There's no evidence to support the notion that either of the teleprompters at the rally were broken at any point during or after the attempted assassination. The theory that Trump's injury stemmed from a bullet, on the other hand, requires a shooter and a bullet. Unlike broken teleprompters, a shooter has been identified, and a photograph documents the existence of a bullet passing by Trump's head. Because there is photographic evidence of a bullet and of a wound caused by a bullet, early and imprecisely sourced claims that Trump's injuries stem from broken glass are false. Again, this is Snopes. I want to show you the New York Times, the failing New York Times. So even Snopes, leftists, even Snopes, and even the failing New York Times. That's when you know it's bad, when they can't get away with a lie. Even they are saying, you guys, stop. Please stop. Look at this. You can see the bullet there in the New York Times photo. See the bullet. This is for the left who's watching. This is the New York Times. This is your outlet. Snopes is your outlet. the reason why I'm bringing all this up is because there was a new poll that shows that 34% of registered Democrats, 34%, 34. Wow. And I think it was something like 12% of Republicans, which is crazy too. But let's talk about this huge number, 34. 34%, sorry. More than a quarter of registered Democrats believe that Trump staged his own assassination attempt on Saturday. According to a shock poll this week, Democrats have a massive blueAnon problem on their hands, and it's far greater than QAnon ever was for the right. This is Andrew Kerr, a journalist who's tweeting this. He's exactly right. It is a far greater problem. You know why? QAnon was fringe. blueAnon it's almost 50%. I mean, it's a very large percentage of Democrats. It's 34%. And you've got mainstream regime talking heads, leftist talking heads like Joy Reid and George Takei pushing this one, pushing blueAnon. The corporate media, that's Joy Reid pushing it. It's crazy. I'm going to show you this study. Let me take this down just for a second. Thank you guys for the super chats. Thank you for supporting Deprogrammed. I appreciate it. I'll Fight You Naked for $2 says, Cuomo, there's no proof that ivermectin works, but I'm on it. Yes, right? We have to laugh at these people. They're demonic in their evil, in their dishonesty, in their weakness and inability to take responsibility for anything, in the way that they just flippantly and carelessly steer people towards darkness, towards lies. But I have to laugh at them because once you see through it, it's really humor. It can become humorous also. Thank you. I'll Fight You Naked. Randy Wallen. Thank you, Randy, for supporting Deprogrammed. Randy for $5 says, they're all paid psyops. Never forgive and never forget. American Pravda, nothing less. The media, yes. And a lot of the celebrities, yes. I agree with you. People seem to forget things like Project Mockingbird, or actually they don't even know. Randy, a lot of people on the left that I know, people in my old cult, you can talk to them about things in history. It's like they're hearing it for the first time. They don't even know about Project Mockingbird. So when you try and say, hey, do you really think the CIA stopped that? Like they said, they're like, what is that? Gosh. If you are here and visiting from the left, please look it up. I'm sure you're like, what is Project Mockingbird? No, that's not a bad thing to not look. The reason you don't know things is because you're in a cult that has kept information from you on purpose. I was in that cult. They discourage you from reading original sources. They discourage you from reading history. But what do? They claim the opposite. They say the right doesn't want you to know history. It's a lie. They don't want you to read source material. They don't, and it's billions of dollars worth of propaganda that's spent on brainwashing you and keeping you in an ideological prison and killing your curiosity. And I was in that cult, so I'm laughing at the absurdity of it, but I understand not knowing these things. I came from that cult. I came from that prison. When I finally broke out of it, it was like I was starved for history, for information, for reading things. I didn't know about Project Mockingbird before that. Go read it. It's okay. And there's no dumb questions. Well, there might be dumb questions, but it doesn't make you a dumb person. So ask your dumb questions in the chat. If you have them, it's okay. G-Man. Hey, G-Man, for $5. Thank you for the super chat. Says the unusual thing she's not seeing is called courage. Oh, Joy Reid. Yes. Yes, she doesn't understand courage. And then he says, for Keri's Facebook tattoo fund. Yeah, I need a Facebook prison tattoo, right? Don't we all? Beard for $2. Thank you for for supporting Deprogrammed says, man, Jones is owed an apology. Yes, I'm coming to that. Alex Jones. What Joy Reid is doing is no different than what Alex Jones was fined $1.5 billion for doing. Here, I've got this queued up. Let me share this instead. So a lot of people who think they are liberals, but who are not liberals, but who think they are liberals, they celebrated when a court ruled that Alex Jones had to pay $1.5 billion for doubting the Sandy Hook's narrative. They celebrated. Now, I think what Alex Jones said was off base, but you're allowed to say things that are off base and are wrong and are crazy. Joy Reid is certainly allowed to. George Takei is certainly allowed to. And they have big audiences like Alex Jones does. They are misleading people. This is what Alex Jones said about Sandy Hook. I want you to compare it to what we just heard Joy Reid say. Here's a small sampling of what he said. This is also from the failing New York Times. Quote, my gut is with the timing and everything that happened, this is staged. And I've been saying the last few months, get ready for big mass shootings, and then magically it happens. End quote. Here's another one of his quotes. Folks, we got to get private investigators up to Sandy Hook right now because I'm telling you this stinks to highest heaven. End quote. You're allowed to, by the way, when something crazy happens, you're allowed to question the narrative, even if it turns out you were off base. Even if you're doing so carelessly or recklessly. My point is that I don't think he should have been fined $1.5 billion, which is using the law, weaponizing the law to punish your political opponents. That's what the left did on this, and try to bankrupt him. I don't think that should be happening. But it's not applied equally. It's not applied to people like Joy Reid, who also is saying reckless, careless things. And, when something chaotic happens, is just like, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. It's not applied equally. So these are some of the things he was saying, which are very similar to what Joy Reid's saying. Is Joy Reid going to have to pay $1.5 billion? Are they going to bankrupt Joy Reid? Are they going to make an example of Joy Reid? No, of course they're not. Of course they're not. That's not the world we live in. Leftists, if you're watching this and you consider yourself a liberal, how can you support this? Because I know some of you do. You think you're a liberal, but you're not. You supported this huge fine for free speech, $1.5 billion to break a person for free speech that you disagree with. How could you support it for Jones, but not for Joy Reid? Could it be that you are a hypocrite? Could it be that your ideology has slowly turned you into a hypocrite who is so blinded by tribalism that you can't weigh things equally, that you don't have any ability to pull yourself out of it, your emotions out of it, and look at things objectively? That you don't have the ability to be intellectually honest anymore? Could it be that? I would say, if you were, and I've said this to friends of mine who are still on the left who think they're liberal, I think you should have enough respect for yourself. Don't you want to have more respect for yourself, where you can become the observer of your own thoughts, where you can step back and try and take a somewhat objective look at your own thoughts and opinions, or what you think are your opinions, and be honest with yourself? You should respect yourself enough to do that. Don't allow yourself to become a hypocrite. If you're a part of an ideology that makes you into a hypocrite, that makes you into one, hypocrisy is something we all have to fight in ourselves. It's one of these vices, I guess you could say, that Ben Franklin could have had on his list. But if you're in an ideology that molds you into one necessarily, requires you to be one, if you're in a tribe that requires you to be a hypocrite, it's sort of a version of slavery. And so don't let that happen to you. You're better than that. My husband's in the chat and he has a suggestion for you. If you've never heard of Project Mockingbird, he says there's an entire book on the whole Project Mockingbird debacle. It's called Finks and chronicles the CIA's relationship with journalists starting back in the 1940s. And it starts in Paris. One of many books, he says. So there's a recommendation. You can go and read Finks. I'm going to show you what George Takei said, and we're going to go back to that study, to the people that they are influencing, that the mouthpieces are influencing. George Takei says a lot of crazy stuff. George Takei is a hypocrite, a giant hypocrite. I mean, just recently he was saying, before the assassination, I highlighted 2 crazy hypocritical tweets of his. You can find lots of examples, but he was saying, if Trump gets elected, he's going to take a marker to the Constitution. And then lo and behold, several tweets from George Takei 4 years ago, where he was saying, after Biden won, and he was saying, we should take a marker to the Constitution. He was like, it's time to change the Constitution and make it so that the new president takes office immediately. And, he was saying all this stuff. It's like, wow. Again, they always, sociopaths, narcissists, leftists always accuse you of the things they are doing or the things they want to do. And that's what he was doing. He wants to change. He wants to take a magic marker, a Sharpie, to the Constitution. So what does he accuse Trump of? A future crime of doing? Oh, in the future, Trump's going to do this thing that I wanted, that I'm already on the record saying I want to do. Crazy. Anyway, here's a good old George Takei. I have several photos with George Takei. I should have pulled them up for this. I've met him several times in my leftist days. And we had him on a TV show that I executive produced once. He was our guest. Also, a few years before that, I spent the afternoon with him in Chicago at the gay games, which is like the Olympics, but for gay people. I've met him, I think 3 times. It'd be pretty funny to pull up those photos, but this guy, ugh, George Takei. He says, call me skeptical, but if Trump's ear really had been hit by a bullet, he would be holding a doctor's report on it way up high and waving it around to the press like an upside down Bible. So he's saying Trump's ear has not been hit by a bullet. He doesn't believe it. Okay. George Takei, I noticed in the proposed community notes, people are dropping the Snopes link and the New York Times link and all these other links. And does he correct himself? Does he apologize for misleading people? No. Is he going to be sued and have to pay $1.5 billion for spreading a conspiracy theory like Alex Jones was? No, that's not going to happen to him. We don't live in that world where the laws applied equally or principles are applied equally, because we currently live in a world that's dominated by one cult. There's lots of cults, but there's one that dominates, and it's his cult. It's the social justice woke cult. I'm going to show you something else for any doubters, in case we have any from the left here. This is a slowed down. If the photo from the New York Times wasn't enough for you, this is a slowed down video, and it also shows how close we came. Just how close Trump came to losing his life. It's crazy. This is slowed down, this video.
You see something that said, take a look at what happened. You see something that said, take a look at what happened. Said, take a look what happened.
Boom. So fast.
You see something that said, take a look at what happened.
That's crazy. How close. How close he came. It's just, yeah, I can't get over it. I still haven't. I think a lot of us are still just processing everything that happened over the weekend. I know I am. I know I'm still processing it. My thoughts are all jumbled. I'm trying to sort them out and put them in a logical order, but I have so many thoughts and emotions about it, and I'm sure a lot of you do too. Jardum for 2, is it pounds? Lira. I'm kidding. Thank you very much for supporting Deprogrammed. He says, is the battle authoritarian versus libertarian now? Jardum, I think that's been the battle for a long time. And that's just one way you could describe it. Authoritarian, or libertarian, or authoritarian individualist, or collectivist individualist. There's a lot of different ways to describe it that I think are correct. But the battle, this is why they want us so focused on the right left, this distinction, which is not as important anymore, if ever it was as that important. They want us focused on that, like that's the most important distinction. It's not. We saw this very clearly during COVID, and I'll take just a second, just a couple minutes actually, to explain this again in case there's any new people from the left watching. We saw this clearly during COVID. There's lots of illustrations, but let me pick this one. At the very beginning, when the media was still, they were attacking Trump for taking COVID seriously. They were calling him a xenophobe. Biden was calling him a xenophobe and a racist for shutting down travel from China, which was very smart that he did that so soon. But they criticized him for it. Biden, Pelosi, all the left, the media. They said he was a right-wing reactionary. They said, the media, do you guys remember this? They said, the headline said that COVID was a right-wing hysteria and conspiracy theory. They said, they put out articles and headlines, the mainstream media, the regime media, the leftist media. They put out headlines saying COVID was no different from the common cold or the flu, and that the right wing was pushing a conspiracy theory about it. And they criticized Trump for taking it seriously and shutting down travel from China. Do you guys remember this at the beginning? That was the beginning. Okay. Then they changed tactics, and they went 180 degrees, and they said it's real. They admitted it's a real thing. Then they lied immediately and told us that there's no way it came from a lab. That was a huge psyop propaganda thing that the mainstream media pushed, a conspiracy theory. And what did they do? Just like narcissists, sociopaths, leftists, they accused their target of doing what they were doing. They accused anybody who questioned whether it jumped species in a wet market. They questioned that, or they called that a conspiracy theory. They projected. They were the conspiracy theorists saying there's no way that this came from the lab in the area it originated that just so happened to be studying gain of function in COVID. Like, there's no way that it escaped from that lab where this very thing is being worked on. That's what they told us, these conspiracy theorists, and the mainstream media went with it, and Fauci, and they all went with it. And they got all these scientists to sign the Lancet letter, who lied in the letter and said they had no conflict of interest when several of them worked at that lab or worked with that lab. And they trotted that out, and they used the science to lie to us and gaslight us. And then not only was it, well, now we admit that COVID's a real thing, and but you can't question where it came from. We're going to tell you a lie about where it came from. And then also, now we're going to have to enact all these authoritarian measures. We're going to have to do this. So they got mad at Trump for temporarily shutting down travel from China. That was crazy, right? And then all of a sudden they're saying something so much worse than temporarily shutting down travel from this country where the virus was coming from. So much worse, they said, we're going to shut down all of the economy, all of the mom and pop businesses, all of the middle class people, their small businesses are going to close down. We're going to even jail grandmas like Lisa Hansen who try to operate their coffee shop, their independent coffee shop. We're going to throw regular people in jail. We're going to throw pastors in jail for keeping their churches open. We're going to shut down churches, all of the economy, except for the big corporations that we're in bed with, the government. The corporations and the government. We're going to keep all the big corporations open and the liquor stores and everything that's bad for humans, but we're going to shut down AA meetings. Think about that. We're going to shut down gyms. You're not going to be able to work out, but you can get your booze. When that happened, when they went full authoritarian and they started pushing for mask mandates and the vax mandates, people were losing their jobs for not getting the jab. The vax, which at first they lied to us. Rachel Maddow, several of them are on camera. They lied again and again and again. Fauci, Maddow, all of them. Maddow told us if you got the vaccine, you couldn't catch or spread COVID. She lied outright. And they kept gaslighting us and changing the goalposts, moving the goalposts every time they got caught in a lie. Well, like, okay, you can get it, but it's going to lessen your symptoms. And, they just kept lying. They banned and censored us if we said, hey, this vaccine is like, it's kind of experimental. It's like, that's the definition of a new vaccine that has not yet been around long enough for longitudinal studies. It had not been around long enough. It still hasn't been around long enough for that. And it's very reasonable to say, to look at, like I did, like my husband did, to look at the risks of both getting COVID and having COVID, and then to look at the risks which were unknown of getting the vax, and to say, hey, I'm not in one of the groups that are in serious danger from getting COVID, the most danger. So I'm going to risk that versus taking this experimental vax. I don't know what the data is. That was reasonable. We were called murderers, grandma killers, that we should be shut out from society. People lost their jobs. They were shunned. They were told they couldn't travel. They couldn't go to work. It was all kinds of craziness. And so I'm retelling this again for any leftists who are joining, because a lot of you had your blinders on, and a lot of you who thought you were liberal and who maybe still think you're liberal, you are not. We watched you support this authoritarianism. At the beginning, we saw the way people lined up on COVID naturally. And that was that those, like Jardum says, this is why I still have this up here, so I don't forget the point of this. Those who were against authoritarianism, which included a lot of actual liberals and hippies, and included a lot of libertarians, and included a lot of conservatives. Those people, no matter if they were left or right or in the middle or what have you, those people who were anti-authoritarian, they were the ones who were out there protesting the mandates. They were protesting the authoritarianism. And on the town square in Georgetown, Texas, there was a group of people out there every weekend protesting forced masking. And they were mostly on the left, crystal wearing hippies. They were anti-authoritarian. There were also people on the right out there. What I'm saying is what Jardum's saying. It was people who were for individualism, who were libertarianism, if you will, but who were for liberty, individual rights over government authoritarianism. That's who was out there protesting. And a lot of them were liberals, like actual liberals. And then on the right, you had some people who tend on the right, not all of the right, but there are some people on the right who tend towards authoritarianism, just like there are people on the left who tend towards it. Some of my family members are conservatives who tend a little bit more towards authoritarianism. I had a family member who kept an older family member who was telling me she really supported the lockdowns and the mask mandates and stuff. And I was like, no, there were some conservatives who were cool with it. They were scared. They were fearful. They were like cool with the authoritarianism. But then what happened? Then the media came in and they decided to make it a right-left thing. They decided to play on this one of the oldest, deepest brainwashings they've ever done to us, which is that right and left matters a lot, and that your enemy, if you're on the right, your enemy's the left, and the left, your enemy's the right. They played on that, and they told us that it was the right protesting these authoritarian measures and that it was the left supporting them. And so what happened? The tribalists lined up with their tribes. The free thinkers stayed where they were. I know those hippie leftists who were still out there protesting every week, the mask mandates. Some of them did. But the majority of people are tribalists, and the majority just trickled over to wherever they were told to go by the powers that be. This is where your tribe is. Okay. Right? This is a long way of answering your question, but yes, what matters is, and what I kept talking about during that time and trying to get people on the left to see, was that this was not about left or right. This was about authoritarianism versus individual liberty, and that they were being manipulated by politicians and the media and celebrities, the government, corporations. They were being manipulated to do the illiberal thing in this situation. They took the illiberal path in this situation. They supported illiberal COVID policies like lockdowns, mandates. They supported shutting down businesses. They supported censorship. All of that's illiberal. And you got played. The people who think they're liberal and went along with that, you don't even know what you believe. You don't even know what you are. You're so lost. Maybe you have a deep attachment, like an ego-bound attachment to being a liberal. I did. Maybe that's a big part of your identity and you feel a strong attachment to it. But what does it even mean? Can you even define what liberalism is? Can you even define a liberal value that you hold to be true? Can you explain how you're a liberal? I know a lot of you can't. I know this. And you should respect yourself. Like, to go back to this, respect yourself enough to figure this out, to think about this. You're an adult. Own yourself. That was a little longer than I wanted to be. But I hope it helped to explain it. Dub, this lady's way off. The leftists are the ones who wanted masks and shutdowns. Yeah, once they were told that that's where they were going. Yes, of course, I agree with you. Yes, they were. But not originally. And in my little town, I don't know about yours, Dub, but in my little town, authentic progressives and liberals continued to be against the mandates. And yes, it was very few of them. Very few. Studies seem to indicate, like if you look at stuff like the Ash conformity experiments, that as many as 70% of the public are just followers. They just go where they're told, where their tribe is. It's probably a lot more than 70%, honestly. Jardum, thank you for the super chat, says Thomas Soul. Third parties can F off, LOL. I'm not sure if I get it. I know and really like. I know up Thomas Soul. I'm not sure what he said about third parties, and I might be missing something here. Okay, let's come back to this for a second. I want to come back to this crazy, incredible poll that shows, I mean, it's evidence of the biggest, craziest conspiracy theory cult in America at the moment, which is the left, which is the modern left. BlueAnon rears its head. 1/3 of Dems believe conspiracy theory that Trump staged his assassination attempt. 1/3 of Democrats believe false conspiracy theory that Trump staged his own assassination attempt. A conspiracy theory has run unabated in Democratic circles following the assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump on Saturday. It posits that Trump staged the shooting for a photo op and that the wound on his ear was caused by something other than an assassin's bullet, and that he was never in mortal danger. It's a baseless conspiracy theory disproven by reams of documentary evidence and eyewitness accounts, and it's a belief held by 1/3 of the Democratic electorate. That's an incredible number. You know, they like to, on the left, they were always trying to make a big deal out of QAnon people, but it was never. I've met at least one QAnon person that I know of, and they believe some crazy stuff now. But it was never 30% of the mainstream who were into that stuff. 1/3 of Democrats. Incredible. It says 1 in 3 registered Democrats believe it is credible that the shooting Saturday at Butler, Pennsylvania was staged and not intended to kill Trump, according to a Morning Consult poll released Monday. The findings show that large swaths of the Democratic base have fallen prey to the phenomenon known as blueAnon, a play on the far-right QAnon conspiracy theory that once gripped portions of the Republican base and served as an obsession of the mainstream media throughout the first Trump admin. You know, another difference between QAnon and blueAnon is that the media is never going to cover blueAnon critically or try, and they're never going to cover it like they covered QAnon. They tried to pretend like QAnon was something bigger than it was. They'll never do that. They're going to downplay blueAnon. They're going to pretend like it doesn't exist. They're part of blueAnon. Joy Reid is part of it. This is just craziness. Okay, I've got another clip I want to show you. If the audio works, let's see. This is another Joy Reid thing that's going around, and there's been several other talking heads saying it too. I just think she's one of the worst. So Joy Reid suggests that Biden recovering from COVID, because Biden just said, like, Trump got shot. It grazed his ear. He almost died. If he hadn't turned his head at that last fraction of a second, like we saw, he could be dead. Not only did he get up in that moment and manage to inspire the crowd, which she tried to say was something awful and nefarious, that as if you could stage that, how quickly that happened. He got up and like somebody said in the chat, she's not used to seeing courage. To them, it doesn't seem, it's like, why would you get up and pump your fist? Because he's a leader, because that's what leaders do. He was inspiring the crowd. He was thinking of the American people. He stood up like a leader, not like a coward. He was about fight, not flight. That was one of the most inspiring things I've ever seen in my lifetime. Ever. And he got up the next day and went back to work. He went golfing the next morning. He got back into his routine. He didn't postpone going to the RNC. And then what happened at the same time? Jovid got COVID again. Joe Biden, supposedly vaccinated, who knows, got COVID again. That's what he says anyway. They put it out that he's got COVID and he's canceling his appearances. And so Joy Reid says that Biden recovering from COVID is exactly the same thing as Trump surviving an assassination. And then she also repeats this conspiracy theory, which, if the world were fair, she would now be responsible to pay $1.5 billion like Alex Jones was. She says Trump was given 9 seconds to take an iconic photo op after being shot.
Well, here's the question that I have on that. These two men are both elderly. Donald Trump is an elderly man who
for whatever reason, was given 9 seconds to take a iconic photo op during an active shooter situation. Weird situation. We'll figure that out one day. But his survival of that and bouncing right back and going right to his convention is being conveyed in the media world as a sign of strength. This current president of the United States is 81 years old and has COVID. Should he be fine in a couple of days? Doesn't that convey exactly the same thing? That he's strong enough, older than Trump, to have gotten something that used to really be fatal to people his age. So if he does fine out of it and comes back and is able to do rallies, isn't that exactly the same?
It should.
I mean, it's not exactly the same. It's not the same incident, but it's an elderly man coming through out of an illness.
It should.
Wow. Can you guys believe the depth of this evil? Yes, Kendra, what a disgusting person. Yes, Ben, that's actually disgusting to make that comparison. I cannot stand that woman. And they are such hypocrites. They are such hypocrites. Imagine for a second that all of this was reversed. Imagine for a second that the assassination attempt had been against Biden, that Biden had gotten shot in the ear and narrowly missed dying from an assassin's bullet. First of all, think about how the media would have treated that in the immediate aftermath versus how they treated it with Trump. It would have been different, and we know it. And you know it if you're on the left. You know it. Imagine how you would have treated the people, the crazy people who are out there saying things like they're sorry the assassin missed, if it had been about Biden. Imagine how you would have reacted to those people. Just imagine that for a second. It would have been different. And then imagine, can you imagine that if Trump had announced he had COVID right after that had happened to Biden? Can you imagine the mainstream media going and saying that what Trump's going through with having COVID is exactly the same thing, quote, exactly the same thing as Biden having almost been assassinated? Can you imagine the media doing that? No, you can't, because they wouldn't have done it. In fact, they would have said Trump's probably faking COVID right now to get sympathy points too. Like, that's what they would have said. You know it. We live in crazy times. Yes, Dub, wild times. Crazy, crazy times. And if you were on the left, this is I'm keeping this one today a little short and sweet, but I'm trying to pick things that I hope will get through, that will pierce through, that you can, if you have any degree of open-mindedness left in you, that you can look at and say, okay, I see your point here, Keri. Even if you think, like a lot of you think, Keri got red pill. Keri, you think I know what you think. You think I'm in a cult. I know, you tell me. You think I'm in a MAGA cult. And all these other things you think about me. Okay, well, I'm not asking you to abandon all those things you think at once. I'm just asking you, is this not true? That what Joy Reid and George Takei and other talking heads on the left are saying is the same as what Alex Jones got fined $1.5 billion for? Is it not the same? Is it not crazy? I'm asking you to look at the fact that 34% of your party believes in this crazy conspiracy theory, 34%. And I'm asking you, is that not alarming? A little alarming when even your New York Times and your Snopes are saying that's crazy, guys. Is it not alarming to you? That's it. Let's start small. Can you not admit those things? Please be honest. We'll start there. Robert, give it up for Robert, one of our great mods here at Deprogrammed. He says, Keri's in the cult of hats. Yeah, this hat, one of our mods, Pirate Tomsky, sent me a few years ago, all the way from the UK. Jardum is also from the UK. Your average patriot nerd is here. Thank you so much for supporting the program and gifting one membership. Somebody, a lucky person who got that membership, you can thank your average patriot nerd. I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I want to keep this one short and sweet. I hope you share it. If there's someone on the left that you think has a shred of an open mind left, maybe this is a video you could send them. Maybe not. Maybe this is a good conversation starter, though. Who knows? If you like the show, please consider leaving a like or subscribing here at YouTube or leaving a comment. And if you don't like the show and you disagree, feel free to leave a comment as well. Short and sweet, like Keri. Therese. Thank you for the compliment. I hope you guys have a great weekend. And I'll tell you, I'll leave you on a happy note for just a personal note for what's going on in my life right now. My husband and I, as some of you know who are regulars here, we've been renovating our house slowly. We bought this amazing house, but it's like the house from Money Pit. We bought this house that was built in 1914. Nobody lived in it for the past 30 or 40 years. And we got it for a sweetheart price because it is in such need of repair. And so we've been slowly over the past few years renovating it while we live in it. And it is our home. People are sometimes asking, are you going to flip it? I'm like, no, I love this. We're making our dream house. So as part of that renovation, we've been, you've probably heard during some shows, all the hammers and stuff, and some of you know the porch, they basically, our whole porch and wrap around the balcony were rotted. There were raccoons living in it and they were getting into the walls of the house. You could hear them in the bedroom, like in the walls. It was crazy. And so all of that needed to be redone. And so we can't do that ourselves, obviously. So we hired a crew. They've been an amazing crew. I'm so pleased with what they've done. And they've completely demolished the whole porch and balcony and rebuilt it. And today is the last day and it looks phenomenal. I'm so happy. We did a couple of cost saving things to save us money, like on the skirting, instead of using bricks on this part. We did these things to cut corners on price, but hopefully not on looks, not on aesthetic, and not on quality. And now when they leave, I hear them packing up the trucks right now. My husband and I are going to begin the process of doing something we can do ourselves, but it's going to suck. But we're going to strip all the paint, which is peeling away anyway. And we're going to try and paint the whole exterior of this huge house ourselves. We got to get some of those guns, those paint guns. So wish us well, if you will, because I just imagine this is going to be, I've been watching YouTube videos and stuff. I imagine it's going to be quite a lot to bite off. But I know we can do it. We can do it on our own and save money doing it ourselves. So that's coming up. I don't know, Squat and P, what colors are you going with? I don't know. See, now I have to figure it out this week. I got so confused because we were going to do classic white and black. And then I opened my mind to other possibilities and I asked people online, what do you think? And I got so many good suggestions back that I haven't narrowed it down again yet. It has to be something classic. We have a historical plaque. So, and we want it to look like a period. It has to be historically accurate, whatever the color palette we choose from, which is a very big color palette anyway. But I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. And I appreciate all the suggestions. You guys gave me so many good ones. I haven't settled on one yet. Lissa, hey Lissa, she says, as a veteran of many do-it-yourself projects, I'm duly impressed with your house, Keri. Thank you. We've learned so much, and we're not. Before this, I wouldn't say we were do-it-yourself people at all, but we've learned so much. Even this week, in the past week, what we were doing in my husband's music studio on the other side of this room, I'm really proud of what he and I were working in there while they were outside. And yeah, it's coming along. It's a few more years, each room. If the next room we're going to do is the kitchen, but it's going to be a little bit before we get to that one. Anyway. Okay. You guys have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday at 1:00 Central. Oh, and Jardum, thank you for the final super chat. Cheers, Keri. Wishing the best. Cheers to you over in the UK. I'll see you guys on Monday at 1:00 Central. And if you like this, consider giving it a like or subscribing. and we'll see you guys later. Take care. Bye.